Hello, beautiful souls. Good to be here. I'm waiting for my sister Anaïs to pop in, and today we're going to, share a little bit about the Priestess Path and different lineages and threads that have brought us and summoned us onto that way. So I'm just going to let Anaïs in here. Hello. Just waiting for the video to be shared here. Let's see. Hello. Already some beautiful hellos.
Hi, Bianca.
Hi, dear. How are you? Welcome.
Good. Hello, everyone as well.
Welcome, welcome. So I was just sharing a little bit before, but now I'll say it again. We are excited to come on here to talk a little bit about the Priestess Path and different ways and paths that we've personally traversed and taken that have led us to this moment in this life that we're living right now, and deep remembering and reverence and service to being a priestess. And of course it doesn't just happen. Of course there's rememberings that happen along the way, but then there's also a journey that we take in our human life and our human vessels to prepare, to purify, to remember. And so we're just going to share our own experiences on that path. So welcome everyone. Thank you, Anaïs.
Thank you, Bianca. Looking forward to it. Yeah. It's been born out of this idea because a lot of people associate us with the rose path, like see us as the rose priestess. And there's so many strands that are part of our priestess path and that have shaped our priestess path. So we want to also clarify that our path is not one lineage, that there's actually a multitude of different influences that have influenced our path and that are still part of it, that really are woven into what we're offering in the world today. And it's all part of the priestess path. So maybe you would like to start and share a little bit about what your maybe initial entrance on the path was, or what brought you to the priestess path.
Thank you. It's beautifully worded, everything. And before I dive into that, because I already know what I'm going to share right now, is just to clarify the word priestess. It has had different, let's say, connotations over the years, and I really feel that there's this strong surgence of reclaiming the true meaning and the true role as being a modern day priestess or a new earth priestess or rose priestess. And to me personally, it really means she who tends sacred life, she who tends sacred our earth, she who creates sacred spaces for people to come into a field of remembering their own divinity. And when you are in the presence of someone who's done this inner work and really emanates beauty, that's a core piece of the priestess path. It's felt immediately, and you immediately kind of arrive and enter into that field and are inspired and are enlivened to open into perhaps a new expanded way of your own path. So for me, that's what priestess is. And it's really this path of being devoted to our own awakening, to the awakening of our heart, to being in devotion to all of life, and really tending all as sacred. Every moment is sacred, making all of life a ritual of devotion. To me also, it just means the culmination of my spiritual journey, everything that I have and we have traversed in this life, all the initiations, all the lineages, all the teachers, everything that we have experienced in this lifetime has really been a preparation to purify our vessels, to be in service to love, to be in service to this humanity, to be in service to keeping sacred also the temple that is our bodies and our hearts and our minds. So for me, I would say that my awakening process really started with the practice of yoga. And it's really something that is so, so dear to my heart. And perhaps I don't share it so much on my social media anymore, but it's a core piece of my life. And so when I started engaging in the practice of yoga, you come to this point of just stillness of the mind. That's really what yoga is all about, is really quieting the mind so that we can then feel and touch something that's beyond the mind. And that practice brought me into union, which is what the word yoga means, into union with my soul, with my divinity. And so that was the first path I really took to awaken remembering within me, connection within me. And I was on a very devoted path for over a decade of just really studying the science of yoga and Vedanta. And yes, and it took me all around the world with beautiful teachers, into ashrams, and apprenticing beside really beautiful, enlightened beings. And I think all of that was important and imperative to bring me to where I am today. So as we're talking about, there's all these different ways that being a priestess, being a rose priestess, to serve love, is not connected to one lineage. It's not connected to one thing. It's just being a being who is connected to the heart, is connected to all that is, and lives from the heart. And so to share more about that path, I think it's just, yes, I didn't just wake up and embody perhaps the field or vibration that I shared today. There was a long process of purifying my body, of purifying my mind, of purifying all parts of myself. And it's still a journey, but the behind the scenes is many years of discipline, of getting on my yoga mat at 3 a.m. for many years, to do a sadhana before the sun rises, to take those cold showers at 3 a.m. and just go into deep practice. And yeah, so I guess expand a little bit more, I think, on the yoga path, but I think I'll pass it to you so we can weave back and forth in our sharings.
Thank you. Well, I think it's important. It feels like the yogic path is really what gave you the foundation and the roots to build all the rest of your spiritual being and your spiritual awareness, and also your offering today in the world. And I think for me, the path and the practice that gave me roots was the Celtic path and the Druid path. So for me, it really, I had a spiritual awakening, as in my crown chakra opened, and I started having all these visions and channelings, and all these things were happening, and I was tapping into all these different realities that I hadn't tapped into in that way before, or that were outside of my field of reality, really. And thank God I found the Druid path, because it allowed me to really bring all those energies down into the body and to learn the language of the body, which is such an important part of the spiritual path. And I think it is something that we should all start with, or that we should all develop alongside any other spiritual practice that is perhaps more crown chakra based, or higher chakras based, because otherwise we can become very ungrounded. And so for me, it was really a chance meeting with a druid in Brittany, that taught me, we did such simple things. We went to stone circles, and he made me connect to the stones and feel their energy, and connect to their language, connect to their sound, calibrate my energy field to their energy field. We would learn about sacred trees, and I would sit underneath a tree and really feel the roots of the tree, and feel how I was related to the tree, and start to connect and communicate with the tree. I started really integrating the cycles of the moon and the cycles of the sun into my awareness, but really also into my practice. And still today, and the same as you, even though it is like the path I started off with, I don't think it's that visible anymore on my social media, or people don't know me anymore for the Druid path, but it is what I started out with, and it's still super precious for me. We just went through the portal of the equinox, and I still really have moments at the equinoxes, at the solstices, and the fire festivals to really see what is out of balance in my life, if anything needs to come in, if anything needs to go, where I'm at. They're really key moments in my journey every time and every year. And it gives such a sense of grounding and such a sense of structure. And I feel that that's something that we all need, is a sense of structure when we go on a path of spiritual expansion.
Mm.
So, and it is true, and I really like that you said that as well, that today we're very active as priestesses and we share a lot as priestesses, but it's been such a long journey. I've been on this path for at least 15 years now. So it's really been building and developing, and it's been with ups and downs and learnings and integrations and transformations and purifications and very deep alchemical processes. So I think it's important as well for anyone listening that it's a path that is ongoing and that still develops. And I feel, and I know you feel the same, that this is a path of a lifetime and that we will continue to develop and we will continue to expand during the rest of our lifetime here on Earth.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So beautiful. And I feel, as we just have this conversation, as it always happens, it just brings me so deep into an understanding, a new understanding of why we're even doing this call, because I think it's so important for people to have that compassion for themselves. It's a journey. And I do believe that awakening can happen in one breath. We're in that time, literally we're in that time where that is so close.
Yes.
But also it is a devotion. It is a practice that has led us to understand, to feel, to sense, to navigate, to share what we are doing today. So there's many paths for all of us, and both Anaïs and I have traversed several different paths, including the Druid path, and for myself the yoga path, and then there's many more that we also share in common and others that we don't. And our intention for this, let's say, series or these exchanges is to just share different ways that we can come into remembrance, come into connection with the earth, come into embodying our wholeness, and navigate the human vessel in its most optimal way. We have a body for a reason. We are incarnate here on this earth for a reason. And I love Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. I always relate to that. It's like we are here, yes, to understand who we are inside, but then most importantly, how do we then serve in the humanity that we actually live amongst? How do we become a master in both worlds, not lose ourselves as we go into perhaps a chaotic situation or into the culture that is a little bit wild right now, and serve love? And I believe as a priestess, that's what we're here to do. And I like the word you use, is foundation.
Yeah.
It's so important that we have a foundation or ground ourselves in some sort of spiritual knowledge, but more so spiritual experience, have touched that space within us and continue to touch that space within us and continue to deepen it in relationship with that space within us so that it can hold us as we be humans. Because that's truly what I feel the world needs right now, is deeply heart-centered, grounded, and clear leaders. And so I don't know what the invitation is. It's to follow your bliss of which practice, which technology, which path is summoning you. There's not one right way. There's many ways. And the one that resonates with you is the one that is meant to be walked by you right now. And it's important to do that work. I would say that number one priority in my day, in my life, is my morning practice, is to wake up and have a window of time that is to nourish, connect, be quiet, to pray, and in that create the foundation for each and every day. So maybe you want to feed on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful and so important. What holds you, what nourishes you, what supports you on your path? What's your heart calling out for? It's such a the heart leads us to where we need to go, and the heart is often calling, and then sometimes the mind gets in the way. Like, I don't know about you, but I often get the reaction or a question from people who are part of a certain lineage, and then they want to go into, for example, the Rose lineage or the Magdalene lineage, and they kind of feel like maybe they're betraying their original lineage, or their family lineage, or the lineage that they're very embedded in. And I feel there's no such thing, especially when we start to study different lineages. We see that there's so much crossover, and that actually we can understand a lineage, a specific lineage, any specific lineage, a lot better when we widen our experience with and weave different strands and different experiences into it, and that it's not one of the other. I do believe that it's important to really go deeply into a certain practice and master a certain current and a certain lineage before you go exploring into different paths. But once that's done, you really gain so much from opening up and learning from other traditions and learning from other lineages. And I also feel that's the way of the feminine. Like we used to think that we had to stick to one lineage. We had to be faithful, we had to be devoted to that. But you can be super devoted to a lineage and practice and honor practices, meditations, devotional practices of different lineages, and it can actually help you better understand your foundational practice. I feel we're multidimensional, and the feminine is like that. It's like a fireworks or a fountain, and it goes in different directions. It's not very linear. And you can do that once you have that first foundational practice, and it becomes really something that's embodied, and that's something that you can fall back on every time, which is what I heard as well from your sharing. It's so important to have that practice you can go back to every time.
Thank you for sharing. It's, yeah, that's so beautiful and right on. Yeah.
Maybe a question that I have when you shared first about your yogic path is, how long have you been on that path?
Mm. Thank you. Yes, I have probably been practicing yoga about 17 or 18 years. And so a long time. And at the beginning, it was really something that just kept me connected to a sense of peace, and let my soul have a little sip of light amongst a life that was quite disconnected. I worked in the finance industry and was living in a big city and had the life of that. But one thing that stayed constant was, my yoga practice. Every morning I would go to a nearby studio, and in that shavasana, I would really just touch something that felt really important and really good and kept me going. And so, that was, about 15 years ago. And then that moved me. I had a certain threshold in my life that made me really realize, hey, I need to make a lifestyle change. And my dream had always been, since I was at mid-teenage years, I wanted to be a yoga teacher, but somehow I didn't grant myself permission to do it. I had a lot of judgment around it. And so when I hit health crisis, let's say, I was like, okay, it's time. I can't keep going. And I left the corporate and I went to Bali and I did my first yoga teacher training. It was a month long, and just being in silence, being away from everything that was my environment, everything that had impressioned me and conditioned me, being away from all that in a place in nature, deeply connected to the moon cycle, the sunrises, walking on the beach, being in the ocean, and then also chanting daily, meditating daily, moving my body daily, receiving these philosophy classes about the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata and all the different beautiful sacred texts, and just starting to peel away all the things. It didn't take long, honestly. That was like a 5-week training, and in week 2 I started to awaken to, holy shit, what have I been, who am I? First of all, who am I? And who was I? Who's the Bianca that has this mask on? Like, how did I even become that? And so much compassion to all of us, because we don't know. But quickly those layers came off, and I started to arrive at my essence and arrive deep into the truth of who I really am. And that launched me on a beautiful journey of just realizing that there is this heart, and realizing when we do practices to quiet the mind, we can make the journey into the heart and feel the truth and essence and profundity of who we truly are. So that's kind of how that journey began. And then I just devoted myself to understand the technology of yoga. And it launched me on a beautiful journey to study deeply all the philosophy of yoga, the movements of yoga, the breath of yoga, and all the different things. And as I was on that journey, I could literally see a purification of all the veils of illusion that once stood between me and the reality. And as we do this work, we start to actually see life as it is, not based on our projections, our beliefs, and all those things. And you would be surprised how many of those layers we actually hold upon our eyes. And as they peel away, it can be shocking sometimes. And there was many moments where I was incredibly shaken up to truths, to real truths of who I am and what I was living. And it was a journey of, like you said, ups and downs, and I like to say all arounds. So yeah, that was my journey with that. It's been a foundation for a long time. And then, yeah, of course, other practices also have come in, and all of them together, I like what you said, all of them together, coming in together to support and hold who are becoming. And I really think we're in a time where it's not about one lineage. There's not one right way. And I love so much the term Rose Priestess, because for me, Rose is love, and we are here to priestess love. And love is not connected to any way, to any lineage, to anything. It's just love. It's a field that you feel in your heart. And it's so beautiful that, yes, maybe there's the foundation of yoga that I have, but there's, as I move through the journey of my life, different foundations were created. And those experiences, like you said, have expanded me and allowed me to see and allowed me to relate and allowed me to understand more and more and more. So yeah, thanks for asking. How about you?
Oh, I started on my spiritual path before, actually. I went on the Druid path, and it was meditation, very simple meditation practices that I started doing, actually, because as I was in a corporate job, I was living a stressful life, and I felt I needed a practice to discharge in the evening my energy, to come back to myself, to come into myself, and in the morning as well, to like get my energy flowing, get my energy going, and really be within myself as I was going through the day. And it's also something that I heard in your sharing is, thank God we had that practice, because it also, the meditation really tuned me into my inner language and my body language. And at a certain point, like you, after months and months of very intense meditation, like I really dedicated myself to it, an hour in the morning and 2 to 3 hours in the evening was what I was doing on a daily basis. And it really opened me up, but also it allowed me to really learn the language of the body and to listen to my body. So when my body started manifesting also these health problems, because at a certain point you go into a spiritual practice and the illusions start to drop away, and you start to physically feel all the parts of life where there's too much of a distance between your spiritual life and your material life or your physical circumstances. And it becomes so violent to go from one frequency to the other all the time that it's too much for the body to hold. And the body starts to manifest all kinds of ailments. For me, it was my skin and it was my nervous system that was really triggered by this difference of levels of energies. And so then at a certain point, there does come a choice point. For you, it was going to the yoga practice. For me, it was stepping out of my job and starting to travel. Really, I had this calling. I had heard this message of to go traveling and to go connect to the sacred sites of the planet and to learn from the earth. That was the message, to go and learn from the earth, which is what I did eventually. But because in the meantime, I had met this druid and I had started these practices on the Celtic path and the Druid path, I felt grounded enough to do it. I felt safe in my body and I had a practice to fall back on. And you do need it when you start on your spiritual path, because when you start meeting the truth of your life and your experience and who you are, there will be some difficulties. And you need something that pulls you through, that helps you to build inner strength and perseverance, and where you can keep going on the path and persevering on the path. So while the meditation really opened up my crown chakra, the Druid path and the Celtic path is really what helped me feel safe and make the choices that were right for my body, for my biology, for my health, and for my journey as a whole. So yeah, so important to have that holding.
Yeah. Wow, thank you so much. All of that was so beautiful. Yeah. And there's so much to share and so many more paths to share. And maybe we'll just, as to not keep this too long, just share a few other lineages that we've both studied and walked that have again led us to this moment. And in future episodes of this, we will touch on those. And some of those being the shamanic path, being the path of the Egyptian priestess.
Definitely the path of ancient Egypt, the Egyptian temple mysteries, the Avalonian priestess as well.
Earth worship, which is huge for both of us.
Yes.
Greek goddess culture, and more.
The Rose priestess,
The Rose
the Magdalene priestess.
the Magdalene priestess, yes, Isis. I mean, all the goddess worship and goddess.
Definitely, it's all part of it.
Yeah,
and maybe we can share as well, just on our foundational strand, our foundational path, our original priestess lineage. What are some of the biggest takeaways? Like, what have you learned from yoga, or what are some of the major benefits that you really received from this yogic path? What can people expect from this path?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Then yeah, I'd love to leave everyone with some sort of like actionable things so they can go home with. So I'll talk about the benefits and then maybe share something that's coming of how to perhaps, if this path resonates with you, how to really embark on it. the benefits of the yoga path for me was really discovering who I am, is slowly deconstructing all the layers of the mind and realizing that the operating system is the heart rather than the head, and the head being a servant to the heart. And that all was exposed through this path of yoga for me, through the path of the body, asana, like you, this embodiment, like coming into our body first and foremost, and then using the breath to purify, using meditation. And so benefits was just really realizing like my truth. So I am that I am. And then another big part of how yoga supported me was through the practice of bhakti yoga, of devotional yoga, of chanting, which is one of my favorite practices, and ways that one of the ways I quickly connect is just through chanting mantras. And through the practice of chanting mantras, it's allowing me to connect quickly to my heart and remember quickly my part in a greater constellation of life, of the cosmos. So allowing me to connect to my heart would be one very important one. Another one is just bringing awareness into me, into this vessel of who I am, and understanding the body really better, and thus being able to nourish it in the way it needs to be nourished, and not neglecting things that can then in the future turn into something, because if you're present with your body every day in gentle movements, you're aware, you're keeping an eye out, you're connecting. And so that's something also that came deeply to me. There was never a practice before that of connecting to the muscles in my pinky finger, and just like really, really subtly coming into the physical body. And then realizing that then after we've got that connection, there's more bodies, layers of the self that we can start to explore and then learn from and master. And I think that's the journey we're on. It's this journey of mastery, of full self-knowledge, of understanding who we are. And so to make it tangible, I would say some practical things that I received was just coming into the heart and realizing that there is a different operating system, is to learn my body and learn myself, who I am, who this vessel is, and now be able, with that understanding, to tend to it the way it needs and wants. And also, I would say, a big part of yoga is the quieting of the mind. And instead of being spread in 1,000 different directions, it's really being able to focus my mind into what is here and now, and living more deeply in the present moment. And yeah, I remember having like so many tabs open all the time in my brain, and it then actually doesn't allow us to be fully 100% coherent with what is, with what is here. And then I'm now able to shift the focus. Okay, we're having this Instagram live together. I'm here, I'm fully here. And then when I'm in a work portal, I can be focused on the work portal. And if there's little things coming up, I have an awareness of how the mind works. And so I can use that in my everyday life to support the efficiency of me, my focus, the peace I feel. So that would be another one. I mean, there's so many more. I just feel like my life is devoted to understanding human potential, and yoga is just a no-brainer. It's like understanding the vessel so that we can be primed and use the vessel in its optimal capacity. And if that's the direction we're going, then yes, it's such an amazing technology. And there's so many more benefits. These are the ones that are coming now. I could talk a long time about them, but for now, I would say, as I was sharing with you about this first yoga teacher training I took, that was an immersion in nature for a month, 5 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I had profound awakenings. And what that says to me is, hey, we have the possibility to make a very real shift in our life if we just disconnect ourselves from the busyness that we live and make it a priority to carve that time out and go immerse ourselves in nature, go immerse ourselves in a conscious space, and ideally also with some guidance, because we could just go to a vacation on the beach and nothing will change. When we come back, we'll be a bit more rested. But if we have some guidance on how to touch those deeper layers, how to remove that which is illusion, that's very, very helpful. So what you can do is, like, if you're really ready for a change and want your reality to perhaps crack and arrive at to what your true dharma or purpose or self or life is, then doing something like that is incredibly powerful. And it makes me actually think about something that Anaïs and I are sharing next year in Mexico. We're actually doing a 1 month training, a new earth priestess training in Mexico, where we will be, yes, just diving deep into practice so that we can awaken back into our true essence and come out of that ready to serve love in our dharmic purpose. Anyways, just plugging that in there because it's perfect. But yeah, that's a great way to get started. And also, if you have a nearby yoga studio, or if you have access to, there's great online yoga platforms. If you are interested, you can DM me and I can send you some tips, some recommendations, but also just visiting your nearby yoga studio. If there's one nearby, I would say that's like such a beautiful way to do it, because often that place attracts like-minded community, and you can then also start to be impressioned by a new way, a new consciousness. And so those are some ways you can start, doing daily meditation, doing some yoga once in a while online, going to your yoga studio, coming to our 1 month New Year's priestess training for a very radical and quick shift.
Definitely.
How about you, my dear?
Thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah, I really hear you on the importance of taking yourself out of the environment that you're used to and putting yourself in a container, guided by a certain surrounding and environment and people who can guide you and help you push beyond some of those limitations that are still within, or answer some of the questions that maybe are holding you back as well. For me, the main benefits of the Druid path and the Celtic path, I think, are a little bit different. For me, the first one is learning the language of the earth, learning to listen to the earth, and really this awareness that our ancestors had and our great grandparents had, the intelligence of the earth, and living with the seasons and living with the cycles, and adapting our rhythms to those cycles instead of trying to force our own agenda upon life and upon nature. So the deep respect of those cycles, and really feeling how those cycles work within us as well, and how they move our consciousness, how they move our whole being, and really integrating the intelligence of that as an intelligence that is present in everything outside and inside. For me, was one of the key learnings of the Druid path. Definitely learning how everything communicates with us all the time. And while I'm saying this, there's a big storm kicking off outside, so I hope this is not interrupting too much.
No,
nature is manifesting. Nature is talking to us all the time. So for me, the Druid path is really about awareness of connection and awareness of community. The awareness that we are constantly in connection to everything that surrounds us, to all living beings that are in our sphere, that we come into contact with, and that we're constantly communicating information with everyone we meet and everything we meet. And so the importance of, one, learning from the beings that we meet, but also the responsibility of carrying a frequency that is beneficial to the environments that we use it, that we move in, and the awareness of the effect of our environment on us. on our body, on our being. So the importance of connecting to nature, just the physical shift that happens, and maybe that's one of the practices that I can give, is a very simple thing. Just sit underneath a tree and sit against the tree. Place your back against the tree and touch the roots and feel how you are the tree. You have roots that go into the earth. You have your body as the trunk of the tree, and your spiritual field, your crown chakra, is the branches of the tree, and you branch into the universe. And there's such a quality of stillness that comes by just connecting and being held by a tree. We can connect to anything. We can connect to a flower. I know we do this very often. We take a rose and we smell the rose and we connect to the rose just by looking at it, by being in visual contact with nature. Something really physically shifts. Like we are remembered of our own nature, of our own innate functioning, of our own divinity. We are reminded of the harmony that we innately are, and we automatically go back to that. So for me, this Druid path, the most important thing was how do we resynchronize ourselves with the harmony of nature and live in community with nature, and live in community with other human beings, respecting each other's boundaries, respecting each other's energy. So yeah, that's and definitely it's something that we will do in our training next year in April together as well in Mexico. We will really share I think the most potent learnings of all the different paths that we went on and that we learned from. So definitely on that sacred land, how to connect to the elements, how to connect to nature, how to listen and really receive such deep wisdom from the land, from the earth, and through that as well, the wisdom of the body. It's really, for me, it's the earth that awakens the wisdom of the body. And it's so simple and it's so profound.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feels like so much beautiful gold that's been shared today. And I'm really happy and I'm excited to continue these conversations and explore different lineages, different paths, different inputs that have supported us into becoming who we are today and bringing us to where we are right now. So I appreciate so much talking and connecting and weaving. I feel complete. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined. Anaïs, if there's anything that you still feel you want to share, go for it. Otherwise, yeah.
No, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you. It's always very beautiful, these conversations. And I loved hearing more about your yogic path as well.
Likewise, I did appreciate listening more about your path, your Celtic and Druid path. So thank you. And next time, let's see which part of our path we will share. And for now, many blessings. And we hope to, connect with you and hear from you. Much love.
Many blessings, everyone. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you.